Hi everyone. So this is Julian and COVID look. The barbers have been closed, so I have had my hair growing and looking more gnarly every day. This is the first show in a couple of months, and I'm going to keep it short, half an hour. Got a timer set. I'm hoping some people will show up. Otherwise, this will be a live stream to the people on Facebook and YouTube and so on. And Vimeo, of course. Using Zoom as always. And this is, I haven't done this in a while, so it's it's a bit weird. Okay, so one of the discussions I've been having recent with a dear friend in Florida is the banality of the arts, particularly, or more accurately, the banality of photography, and the fact that there are, in his opinion, very few to no interesting pictures to be seen anymore, because photography, as did painting, has kind of gone the route of emotionality and banality and so on. And at some point, that becomes a downward spiral, which ends up in kind of some of the work that we see, or a lot of the work that we see nowadays. Skill, I think, still is an important issue, and maybe that's gotten forgotten. But I disagreed with my friend. Banality in and of itself has a place, and puns have their place in humor, as do comedies and well-told jokes. So it's kind of a hi, Bill.
Hi there.
Yeah. So it's the banality. It ends up becoming just one of the defining aspects, or one characteristic of what we see and know. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, if you will. But I do agree with my friend that that there needs to be a new method, or we need to, really, what I'm beating around the bush. What we really need to do is we need to get back to looking for things. This the art market, and my being a part of it, has been very involved with pre-chewing, preparing, slathering with fairy dust the work that we find to be great and that we would like to sell. And I think that's a valid thing to do. Every salesperson tries to, at least make the things that they're selling seem appealing. But it's, society, in its speed and in its constant flow of input and drastic lack of free time, has kind of gotten stuck in a service mentality. And that was one of the bigger issues with the art carousel, the art fair carousel, which we all know is kind of one of the things that has gotten wiped out by the pandemic. And I think what we're probably going to end up seeing sometime soon is that people are going to be coming back with a ferocious hunger for new things to see, and they're not going to be primed and pre-juiced, if you will, with the stuff that they've been seeing at all the other fairs. So the entire repetitive thing is going to hopefully have disappeared. And I think going back to an art fair where there's lots of people for the first time after a year or a year and a half, or maybe even 2 years, depending on how long this entire situation continues, is going to be a new discovery no matter what. Because anytime you go back to a place that you loved for the first time in in years, you rediscover things, and of course, fairs change. Hi, Patrick. Good to see you.
Hello.
So I think these are it's going to be very interesting times, and I think photography. I mean, there's these two kinds of trains of thought about what photography is. Is it a simple art form, or is it not? And a lot of people, particularly the iPhone, or the mobile phone in general, has made the physical act of photographing very simple. Um, and the filters and technology that are involved now, it's almost impossible to take a bad picture, if you will. We can get into details like the precision, the resolution, um, the light sensitivity of the sensors, or whatever else there is. Hi, Marshall, welcome. All of these things can play a role, uh, but I don't think that that's really impactful. It's just those are like skill sets. And if you're looking for something, then you need to know them, or you need to have certain tools to do certain things. But that doesn't necessarily impact the artistic value or strength of the work that's being discussed. So, hi, John, welcome. Um, yeah, so I'm of the mindset that photography is actually the most elusive and the most complex and mysterious of all the art forms, because of the incredible restraints it has. I mean, to be truly precise in photography, and to do so regularly, you need to be able to transfer ideas and thoughts into patterns that are recognized in the world that you see around you. And just to be clear here, people who are working, who are doing extensive Photoshop work. Nothing against extensive Photoshop work, so please don't take that as an offense in any way, anybody. But anybody who's doing extensive Photoshop work, in my opinion, is more of a painter than they are a photographer, because it's just a different way of painting well. It's and you could make the same argument for still life photography, which there's an argument to be made that that may be accurate. But I really do think that at the point where the picture can't exist without extensive digital reconstruction, it ends up becoming more of a painting. And having met a number of painters who are absolutely capable of painting photorealistically, I think that there's a valid argument to be made for that. Particularly because you're also, the one major aspect of photography, which no other medium has, except maybe recorded music, is time or film. Anything that's bound to a time frame, and photography is the still of all of this. So, um, I think, yeah, okay. So, anyways, so I find photography to be exceedingly elusive. And as I don't want to spend the entire time talking, I wanted to use this one picture here that Sean Hammerle did. This is part of our current exhibition. Um, This was taken during the first COVID-19 lockdown in New York City. And this particular photograph is made out of, I think it was like 6 or 8 large scale photographs that Sean then put together. And the reason he did that is because he was looking for a very particular depth of detail. Now, what we're looking at here, this is a JPEG file, which is in my Dropbox clearly. This is what I call the use of technology and of composition um, to get really deep into a story. I mean, if you look at this, you can see what's happening in this building in this photograph, which I find absolutely extraordinary. And there's all this detail, all this stuff, these people sitting here walking around and doors open, reflections and so on. It's quite an absolutely stunning picture. But when you first see it, all you see really is, a very, like an almost mundane looking block of glass from across the street. Now, I mean, everybody knows I'm a great fan of Sean's work. He's the first artist that I asked if I could represent him, and I still represent him now. We're dear friends. So, I'm going to have to put that in as a reveal all or whatever you call that. But I think this kind of imagery, my friendship with Sean, by putting that aside, this picture is stoic. I mean, it's completely calm, and you discover it with time. Like, I mean, details like this. I just find this fascinating. And that kind of mystery, that kind of depth that can be seen in a photograph like this, which in this case, is based on the technical ability of his gear and, of course, of Sean's ability to photograph. Hey, Tom's here. Hey, Tom. Good to see you. I find this to be, really inspiring. And the amount of time, the amount of effort involved in making an image like this and making it function and actually do what it's doing, I think is extraordinary. And the reason that we as a general audience don't tend to look at that skill set or that ability is because it looks like something that we recognize. Like, our eyes do this, we see this, and we can recognize this. And I think that that's one of those elusive things about photography, is that it uses the language that our memories are made of. And that, I think, is really, really important to understand and to know how that fits together, and to be able to accept that it's not just a good camera. It's if photographs are connecting to your emotional self, are connecting to the inside of you and to your understanding of yourself, they're opening up a conversation with yourself. Windows and mirrors, Sarkowski, blah blah blah, which is extraordinary because it's, well, anyways. So, okay, so I wanted to share this picture with everybody. And now, after I've done my brief little talk, and sorry if I'm all crunchy, but I really haven't done this in a while, and I'm completely out of practice. I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to open up the conversation. I'm going to say hi to some people, so that I can see who's who. And I'm going to start with my good friend, Tom.
Are you there?
Hey,
Hello?
Tom.
Hi.
Hey,
Uh,
there
how
he
you doing?
is. And I'll bring everybody else in here. How are you, man?
Good. Sorry I'm late.
No worries. I just decided, like, I've been trying to think about ways to do this properly and make these meetings really uh, deep and meaningful. And I've discovered that it's really no point. I'm just gonna just jump into it
There is
and
no
leave it at
point.
that.
Well,
So, how's the art world going in New York?
uh, good. I see my friend John.
Hey, Tom.
How are you, brother? Good to see you.
Discombobulated like everybody.
Yeah, yeah. And is that Bill from Florida?
Maybe.
Yes, it is.
Hey, long
There he
time
is.
no
Hey,
see.
Tom.
Well,
I haven't seen Tom in a long time. Tom, if you're doing webcast or something I should be getting, I'm not getting them.
Okay, I'll make sure. We send everything by carrier pigeon, so they
Yes,
get distracted sometimes.
that might
So.
actually work.
you probably get a little stony when they fly through my smoke signals.
So, Julian,
Yep.
I met Bill before I met you.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah,
I'm old.
yeah. Well, it's been a long time, and I think it's nice to see that you guys know Julian, one of my favorite people in this world. So, uh, it's a pleasure. Nice small world.
Yeah.
I actually only caught the last part of what you were saying, and the comment about photography being an extension of oneself, just as any other medium of expression might be. And I think that's what we're all here about, for sure. Um, but I think I don't feel like I have to have that conversation as feel that there are more people out there that have a understanding that this is a form of expression. And um, I think there are more people today that are capable of appreciating photography as art as well.
I agree, which is the whole reason why I think it's really important to talk about it.
Yeah.
I at the beginning of the talk, I was talking about the fact that the art carousel like shut down because of the pandemic in March of last year. You know, TAFAF got cut off in the middle, and everything else after that has been canceled pretty much. Um, and I think that that's. Oh, hi, Patrick. Nice to see you.
I
Um,
realized my camera was off.
no worries. Um, I think that we may be looking at a phase where the overkill that we were all kind of suffering from inside of the art world, or at least a lot of people were, um, that's we've kind of gotten over that overkill. We've whatever detoxed from too much art fairs and too much seeing art, and people are going to come back with an appetite. And I think this is the right time to bring this topic to the conversation, to the table, because the people who are coming and who are looking now, they may very well be looking for material that they haven't seen.
Right.
And if we can bring the conversation in, meaning we can raise up the issue that that people's fear of not understanding photography or feeling stupid because they think a photograph is great and being worried about other people laughing at them or something. I think we can bypass that by expanding on the real power of the medium.
So, Julian, I missed the very, very beginning of your presentation, but you were talking about uh, photography and using Photoshop to a certain extent turns it into something other than photography, which I'm not necessarily going to disagree with. But then you mentioned still life, and so I'm wondering, how are you defining photography? We're doing
Yeah.
we're doing a little event tonight, which is cameraless photography, and arguably that's not photography at all, but it uses the photochemicals and the materials and stuff like photograms, which used materials and light, but no lens other than to focus the light.
I hear you. I mean, based on that point, you could even make an argument for drawings being made in a room-sized camera obscura are actually photography in a kind of inverted way. In that the light is the primary part of what's being used to draw.
Right.
Um,
Or then it makes me think of Abe Morell, which I love his stuff, but
yeah, I think. I mean, I'm really hesitant to actually answer that question. What is photography?
It almost doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Could I add a thought? I have a group of chemo monoprints, which is where Dianora Nicolini, the one of the pathfinding female photographers, drew on photographic paper with photochemicals and then developed it as a picture. And she did this in 1995. And I've just given 4 of those to the Ringling Museum, but I've given them to other museums as well. But I don't know who else has ever done that, but it is a photograph because she used photographic materials and she developed it as a photograph. But it is a drawing.
Yeah, I've seen work that used other substances as well, like some kind of grotesque stuff using pigs' entrails and stuff on photo paper. And yeah, there's a lot out there like that.
We have chemograms.
I think
I dabbled in some of those, and it's the same
Exactly.
type of thing. Take the gelatin paper that's outdated, expose it to light, which is the first thing you're told never to do when you're learning photography. And then by putting some sort of resistant things down, you can play around with it, and no camera at all. And I wondered when I first started doing that, is this really photography or is it just another art form? And at the end of the day, I guess it doesn't matter.
I think it really doesn't. The one thing I did want to say is that, I think we're involved in a conversation that will at some point be clarified, just like the epochs in art history are clarified. Like, artists, no one became an artist and said, okay, I'm going to do just this. Artists get put by history into certain places, styles get developed to become kind of a label for a particular thing that becomes a brand recognizable aspect of whatever it is that we're discussing. And I think this idea of, what's the final definition of photography? Do we say, well, portrait photography? That would be, an adjective that would help to differentiate. Cameraless photography then becomes something. But cameraless photography can also be a form of collage, because if you're doing it in certain manners, then you're actually creating collages of light, different levels of light being exposed to the material that's sensitive to it, and so on. So, I mean, when I started my gallery, everybody knows I'm deeply steeped in photographic history through the family. I've tried to avoid being a photo gallery because I don't see that definition. That would be like somebody saying I'm a gallery that sells acrylic paintings. It doesn't really make sense to me from the conceptual, from the creative aspect of the work that I work with and the people I work with. So that makes it, there's Jan. Hold on, I'm gonna bring him in. That makes it a bit difficult for that definition. On the other side, people need to have really stupid, simple names. Like if you say an impressionist painting, everybody has an idea of what that is, right? You say a cubist painting, hi guys. You say cubist, everybody knows what it is. You say Dada, people will at least have an idea. You say Bauhaus, there's a thing to it. There's an identifiable brand to any of those labels. Photography in and of itself doesn't have an identifiable brand. We speak about photography, and we could just as well be speaking about canvas or paper. Oh, I'm a paper salesman. I'm a canvas. I'm
Well,
a
I
stone
think
salesman.
there's a basic understanding of something photographic, but I think ultimately you're saying what we all are saying, which is, it's the expression that matters, and create the idea that a human being has expressed themselves and created something that has the effect, and hopefully in a positive way, on another human being it's cool stuff. It's
Yeah.
what gets me up in the morning. Um, so, but your comment about the art market and COVID and all of that, and it's interesting how it's interesting to recognize how social the idea of collecting is, and whether it's in person or not, so much of it is about relationships. And I don't know about you, Julian, but obviously business is different than it used to be. But the business that I am doing mostly, most of it's based on long-term relationships with people and understanding what their collecting needs are, and what they're looking for. And occasionally there's, some publicity for one of my artists, and that might attract a sale or something like that. But by and large, it's really based on the relationships that the gallery has with collectors.
Yeah, the relation. Yes, well, certainly. Um, that's a really, really important part of the business that we're in, because the skill set that gets developed by anybody who's collecting, the precision, the passion for whatever the collection ends up becoming, is absolutely vital, particularly to understand the developments and the more detailed, the finer granularity of the work, and also the personal experience. I mean, every good collector that I know is personally invested, and I'm not talking financially. I mean, really, they buy pictures that they love for a very particular reason. There's a narrative, there's a story, there's something happening, that they're collecting the work and they're doing it very much on purpose. And I think that that's a really vital thing. My larger concern is that I've known photography collectors since I can remember, like since my dad opened his gallery in the late 70s. And most of those great collectors have stopped collecting. And the knowledge that's going away with them and their understanding, that's going to disappear at some point as well. And that's why I think these conversations are also important, not for us or for the business we do now, but for the business we do in 5 years. Because the younger people whose only understanding of photography is literally a digital device, who've never actually looked through a studio camera, or these are people who have an intensely attuned visual sensibility, because they're flooded with imagery and they're able to filter through images much faster than we are. I mean, well, maybe not this group here, but your general young person nowadays can recognize things, patterns, symbols, recognizable things inside of photographs much faster than
Because
than I
it's being
could when I
used
was.
because it's being
Yeah,
used as a form of communication.
yeah,
Right.
and
But and the beauty of that, though, isn't it, is that, I mean, in a sense, art is communicating, right? Art is a form of communication. So if photographic art has a audience that is, quote, literate, able to understand, able to digest photography greater than it has in the past, to me, that seems like it bodes well for the art world of photography for the future, even though it's going through a reassessment at this stage.
Yes, I agree, and I agree with one half of my head wishing for it, and the other half of my head assuming it. I think that once people realize exactly how special the photography can be, and how absolutely engaging, almost how vital it's become. We're going through actually the first phase that I can think of in a long time, or actually worldwide ever, where people have had to endure wanting things. We've spent the last 30 years in a society, or in the first world countries, in a society which has continued to deliver more and more and more. We wanted more, we got more. We want more, we got more. And now we're, after a year of the COVID pandemic, people have had to deal with not being able to have something. And I think that that's going to awaken possibly a very different appreciation for anything. And if people are open to it, again, this is why I think it's important to discuss photography right now. If people are open to discovering things, anything, and there's people like us talking about the virtues and the beauties in photography, then I think that can have a really, really great impact, uh, both for our job as gallerists, and also for the medium and for the arts in general. I think this two class society of photography, only certain photographers are actually big artists. Cindy Sherman is an artist. She's not a photographer. She's a photographer. She's an artist. She's both. And I
You
think that
see,
this should be.
do you see younger collectors gravitating to a certain style, aesthetic, or criteria in the photography that they collect?
There's a movement towards handmade work, which I'm registering. Things where the technicality of it, where they can basically where they can stand in awe of the fact that they actually can't do that themselves.
Where the thing has greater meaning than the representation on their phone or their computer?
Yeah, it embodies the physicality of the object embodies something which is irreplaceable.
So are you talking about unique images where there's only
Not,
one?
not necessarily. I've been doing quite well with August Sander modern prints, which
Just
are,
because they're beautifully printed.
yeah,
And the quality of the object isn't something that you come across that often.
right. And
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's a consistency. Yeah,
so,
it used to be like this huge, I think John is referring to that trend of, what we were talking about before with what Patrick was talking about as well, with the chemograms and the photograms, the naturally unique objects that the medium creates, or, hand colored things, or distressed material. But there's also the photograph at the highest print quality that is so luscious that this thing has a tactile, it gives off a tactile experience, even though you're not touching it.
Makes me want to circle around to what you were saying, Tom, about how online, let's use Instagram as an example, is bringing a lot of people to a literary or a fluency in visual aspects. On the other hand, most of the time we're looking at tiny little screens and giving it a short amount of attention. And Julian, I forget the name of the artist you were just showing at the beginning, whereas his work clearly demands much more attention and a much different scale than looking at an Instagram photographer. So I'm wondering if, is there going to be a flow from the Instagram aficionado to this other kind of work that we're talking about?
One thing I see happening is that we're getting some curatorships of photography in museums that did not exist 10 years ago. The Ringling Museum, for example, just got a few $1 million to endow a curatorship and a purchase fund. And effectively, it had no collection. It may have had a total of 2,000 images, 1,000 of which was given by the new donor. And all of a sudden, it's on the map. It's one of 3 endowed photo curatorships in Florida. And I expect great things to happen from that. And those are interpreters that will bring photography to a new audience because of exhibits and their own cultivation. And I think that has some very potent prospect for interpreting photography, introducing new vehicles like the handmade or the photogram or the pinhole camera or whatever, but also the historical material. Yeah. And I think that is a validated platform in the museum that will create new collectors.
Bill, I think that's essential, Bill. It's like we all as human beings want to see our ideas, our instincts validated by others that we respect. And the museum, I think, is still kind of a pinnacle of that sort of achievement.
Well, I'm seeing big growth in that area. And that's
I hope
something
so.
I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it's one of the problems that I've run into in dealing with professionals inside of the business is there's not enough, or there's too much adhering to an educationally based understanding of the arts. You know, the art historians, people who have not actually like worked with not just photography but with paintings in general, with any art form. The appreciation is a much more cerebral, much more intellectual one, and I think that lack of connection to the physicality of it, to the preciousness of it, by having held something like that, by having worked with it, I think that that's one of the things that's missing, and the fact that a lot of people don't rely on their own opinion or their own reactions. You know, it's I mean, I've told this story before. I'll just quickly sketch it. When my brother and I were kids at home, my dad used to sit us down in front of photo boxes and he'd say, look through this box of photos and pick your one favorite photograph. One. And then we'd go through a stack of photographs. We'd have to pick one photograph and say, this is my favorite out of this box. Which is a really different thing than saying, put a stack together, the ones you like and the ones you don't. And it's infinitely more challenging than picking two, because you have to knuckle down and say, this is the one. If I had to pick one and I had to throw everything else away, this is the one I'd keep. And I think that kind of training, going through boxes of photographs, not just seeing the stuff that has been picked and selected and has the accolades and has the sales history and all of that, but just seeing the mindset of the artist by going through the work. This is the same thing that, associated with this is studio visits of contemporary artists, where you go to the studio and you go through the drawers of drawings, or you go into the workshop where the sculptures are being made, or go into the studio and listen to the various cuts on a recording to see, what's the mindset of the artist, what are they doing? And I think that form of education is really, really important. And it's a thing that galleries used to do. I mean, these are the kind of shows that my dad would put on back in the 70s and in the 80s, where it wasn't always just the cream of the crop. He was educating the audience. But the art world has kind of lost that in a way, because we're so, I mean, it's it's become excessively expensive, and there's all these requirements, or the implied requirements. And I'm hoping, again, bringing back this topic of my hopes for the future. I'm hoping that the appetite that I can feel, that when that gets unleashed and people come out and start consuming and digging and finding things, that could actually be a really great time for the arts in general, but particularly for this medium,
Well,
where people can then discover the beauties of
I
it.
could, I'm not a gallerist or even really a collector like I think you guys are, and I don't even remember how I got onto Julian's mailing list for these things many months ago. But I'm in the New York metropolitan area, and I'm a photographer, and I'm part of a photo group as well as a small regional arts center. And we were pushed into this virtual world by necessity. And we've been doing certain things. I'm trying to, with a few other people in the group, we're trying to keep our membership engaged and active, and just keep them doing something during all this. And it's been very helpful to embrace this new medium. But I do think that once we kind of come out of it, the artists are going to have this pent up energy that they'll be out there just creating, hopefully, some amazing stuff, just like what happened after the plague and the Renaissance. But I think the public is going to crave live. And I think we're in a position there that people are just going to want to get out there, and community, the sense of community and art. And I'm pretty confident and hopeful for that. And I think, if we're stuck in this world right now that we have to try to, make, giving lemons, make lemonade. And I like to think that's what everyone's doing, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, may that be exactly the truth. And you brought up one point, the technology and what's going to happen afterwards. I really think that everyone is going to absolutely desire going to an opening, going to a gallery and seeing something, going to a museum and seeing a show. That's these are the experiences that we've. I mean, in New York City, there used to be openings like all the time, and it's the thing, the communication. Tom, coming back to what you were saying earlier about the relationships that are developed. Where do we develop those? In that we stand in front of a picture and discuss, or we're standing somewhere and even just in a cafe, you talk to somebody and you develop a relationship by all the things that humans have been doing forever. And I think that maybe it'll be like falling in love again. Who knows?
Well, our group,
Discovering the magic.
we have a group that's been around for 45 years, and it's always been, once a month get together. People would sign up to bring in prints, a dozen prints, you put them up on tabletop easels and everyone gathers around and looks at them. And now that we've been forced into this virtual world, in the past, it would be maybe 6 or 7 people a night, and they maybe get 15, 20 minutes tops. Now we're doing 2, maybe 3 people a night, and they're getting a good 40 minutes because what's happening, and thankfully there's Lightroom, so we can kind of put the stuff up on the screen and match pairs of images, things that when you're live, it's tough to kind of run around and move things
Sure.
by a group. But we're getting these meaningful discussions that we never used to get live. And I think some people were kind of intimidated live to jump into the discussion where they're not as much virtually. So we're trying to figure out how we can incorporate what we're doing now with live when that time comes to get back to doing it, finding some sort of hybrid system so that we could still, even, matter of fact, as I said, we're in the New York metropolitan area, but now we've had people from California, Nevada, people sign on. You're in Berlin, am I correct? Is that where you are?
Well,
yeah, so that was impossible, with our old setup. So now we're able to reach out to other photographers embrace what they're doing. And there's just this exchange of ideas that just did not exist prior to this.
Yeah, we've had the same experience with the Photographic Resource Center in the Boston area. Our online stuff has been able to bring people in literally from all over the world, which is really interesting. Still not the same as in person.
Yeah, I think all of these forms of getting together are key. And I mean, we can sit here all in our various places in the world because we have a common interest we share, and we have the desire to spend time together in this manner. And that works in this case, just as it would work if any of us were meeting with somebody in person. And it's just another way of communicating digitally. And if one thing has come out of this part of history, or this last year in history, it's that we've realized what's important and what's not. Like all the stuff that we really didn't need is kind of, we've forgotten about it. And maybe being freed up of some of that baggage, some of that habitual baggage, is also going to give us some space in our heads to and in our hearts to discover some new stuff.
I would say necessity is the mother of invention. In this case, it might be the mother of process as well. Once we kind of come out of this, things, as you said, there are things that we'll embrace. There are other things we may say, well, why were we doing it that way when we could do it this way? And so you pick what you can and leave the rest, and kind of make something new.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Patrick, you should shoot me an email, because I'm a software developer as well, and there may be some common ground between the software I'm developing and have been developing for the last couple of years and what you're trying to do. It has to do with geolocation aware broadcasting of events.
Okay. Yeah, because the Art Center, again, there's the photo group, then there's the Art Center, and they are seeing what we're doing, and now they want to do it for a lot of their classes and things. So I'll definitely send you an email. So I guess the email I got from you with your link is how I should get back in touch.
Yeah, that's the easiest thing, because that's one of my email addresses, but I get that.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. Well, it's lovely to be back. I set my timer, and I'd told myself it would be a half hour, and it's now 45 minutes. But it's great to see everybody, and I'm surprised anybody showed up. So I was actually kind of expecting to monologue my way through this. It's good to see everybody. I'm glad everyone's doing well, and I'm back. The show's back, and it's going to be as loose, Taylor. It's going to be as loose and as unrestrictive as possible. Just a place to get together and talk photography and art and whatever else comes up.
Julian, could you send us the calendar of when it will be on? I only stumbled on your email almost as you were starting.
Every Thursday at 9 p.m. German time. So
that's 3 p.m. our time.
3 p.m. East Coast, noon West Coast.
Okay, Thursdays. All right, got it.
Thursdays 9. Yep.
Look forward to.
And I have the emails come out, like the reminders come out an hour ahead of time. Maybe I'll change that they come out like an hour and a half or 2 hours ahead of time, so everyone
please
can think about it.
Walk the dogs.
And if anybody wants to show art, bring art, has a topic that they want to discuss, bring it on. It's I can monologue as long as the day is long, but I'm an art dealer, so it's kind of my job. I'm happy to give a platform for other topics, for other people's ideas or points of discussion. So if you have it, bring it. Send me an email or just bring it up here during the conversation. It's not just me hearing my own self-talk.
It's good to see you and Tom do another episode again. How often, Tom, will you be joining?
I don't know.
Well, you are warmly welcome to join almost every week. So I invite you.
Thank you.
If anyone's looking for excellent coffee, by the way, just on a side note, Taylor, that coffee is extraordinary.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank
Coffee
you.
guy.
Coffee
John,
and
you don't look like you're in
wine.
Boston, by the way.
Sorry?
No, I'm in Key West right now. It's
Nice.
cold weather. I come down every winter for a while. I've got 5 weeks down here this year.
Oh, sweet.
And I'm in
I was
Tampa,
wondering, did-
70 degrees.
Like Boston.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
signing off.
Anyway, it's
Nice to see you all.